Hi, everyone. It's Candace Craw-Goldman at quantumhealers.com, back again with another super great question this week. And this week's question came from an in-person meeting I had with a practitioner who actually took Dolores Cannon's QHHT many years ago and subsequently took BQH, but has been out of the work for a while and didn't do too many sessions back then and wanted to start up again, but kind of wondered about, making sure she was up to it, that her session work was up to it. So we had this conversation, and it's a pretty big conversation. And I took some notes to make sure that I shared it with you all because I knew that I wanted to when we were finished with the conversation. So these points aren't everything that you might want to do to become a better practitioner or better at session work. But these are the things we talked about and the things that uppermost in my mind to consider when you want to get, better at what you're doing. All right. So number one is to do the work, even if you don't feel like you're ready, because really practice makes perfect. I know that's a tried and true and sort of an old fashioned way of looking at it, but you're not going to get better unless you actually do the work. It's true. You just have to do it. Experience doesn't come unless you actually do the work and get the experience under your belt, and then you become a better practitioner. You can't get experienced at anything unless you actually do it, right? Number two, I wrote this down. Remember to let the client do most of the talking. If you find that you're doing a lot of talking in a session, and I'm talking about the interview portion or the rapport portion where you're getting to know that person. Sometimes a practitioner has to do some talking in a regular session if the person is kind of tight-lipped or doesn't have a lot to say during the session and needs a lot of prompting. You will find yourself using more words. There's other clients, who don't have to be prompted very much, and you say very little during a session. But especially that first part when you're getting to know the client, make sure you let them talk, because the more they talk, the more you learn about them. And the better it is kind of all the way around. The person reforms sentences and concepts in words that actually help them understand even where they're coming from and the things they may have been thinking about for a long time. But if you can get them to talk about it, sometimes some discoveries or at least some perspectives can be figured out in the interview portion of the session if you give your client enough time to talk. All right. Number three, I wrote down, remember, as a quantum healer, you're not primarily in the business of offering advice. This isn't I suggest you do this or that kind of a counseling session. So remember that most of the answers, the information, and the discovery should come through the client, for the client. Okay. So you are a facilitator. You assist your client in this exploration of their consciousness, but you're not there to give them any answers. And the very best practitioners I know are very careful not to do that. All right. Let's see. Number four, remember that the clients who seek you out are the perfect match for you at that time, even if you are not the most experienced one on the block. Something about that client needs you, your energy, your experience, and something about you needs that client and their presentation and their experience. Every session is perfect in that way. It really, really is. If reality and life has brought it to you and you two are together, just know you don't have to be the one with the most sessions under your belt. You don't have to have been practicing for 5, 10, or 15 years. You can have that be your third session or your fifth session ever, even if you've waited a long time. None of those things matter. If right then and right there you've come together, you both are the best for each other at that time because the energies have matched and have brought you together. So keep that in mind. All right. Number five, remember there are way more energies at play here than sort of your own skill and experience level. And so what am I talking about? The person, the client has brought their team, you've brought your team. And of course, what I mean by team is your higher self, your guides, your ancestors, some of the angelic realms, some of all of the energies that are there and available and are ready to be accessed. even if you don't exactly know the origin or have a name for it, you are supported in that moment. You truly, truly are. You and your client and what you are doing is supported. And if you go into a session keeping that in mind, it's really, really helpful. You know, you're kind of the spokesperson from this end, and the client is the spokesperson on that end. But behind you are big teams, and really believing it and feeling that you are supported helps in the session. And even if you're not a former student of Dolores Cannon, even if you haven't taken QHHT, you know what? You can always ask for her help too. You don't even have to do it directly. Just kind of, if you do it in your mind, you can do that for sure. You can always join our forum at quantumhealers.com or rejoin it. Remember, we were Dolores Cannon's official support forum all the way back 15 plus years ago. And all of those archives are available. And thousands of practitioners have come through and been supported by this work and this material. And all of that is recorded there. All of those archives are there. You can benefit from reading questions, answers, advice, tips, all of those things, plus a bunch of session stories, little snippets and video links. All of that has been archived and saved for, well, at this point, it's about 15 and a half years, right? We've got so much for you to search through, to look at. And every bit of that helps you become a better practitioner for sure. And even if you want to just ask the same question over again of our community, that's fine too, because believe you me, almost every question you can imagine has been asked and answered over all of these 15 years. It's quite rare to hear a question asked that hasn't been asked before. When it is, it's quite stunning, because it's like, wow, I've never heard of anybody asking that question before. It doesn't happen that often, but it does. And, you know, that's recorded for the next time. Oh, swapping sessions with other practitioners. It's the best way to go. It really is, because another practitioner, especially someone who's new themselves, they're going to be understanding. It's going to be easier. It's easier to do a session swap with another practitioner, especially when you're feeling a little unsure or when you're new, because that other person is typically in the same boat and you're typically both nice to each other. And listen, this is the way you ought to think about having a session swap. Even if that person on the other side is stumbling, or maybe you don't find that you like their voice, or maybe you don't really, you know, enjoy their style. Let me tell you what, first of all, depending on, you know, your communication with that other person, they could benefit from your feedback. You know, be nice, but they could benefit from your feedback. But here, even if you don't offer feedback, even if they don't ask for feedback, you can in your own mind go, wow, you know what? She's talking so fast. I'm going to make sure I don't talk so fast when I'm having, you know, a session with my own clients. You know what? She's talking really, really loudly, and I don't like that. And it's jarring. And so I'm going to make sure that my voice is softer and easier to hear. You know, speaking of voice, I've been open about this from the beginning. I do not have a natural hypnotic voice. I have to really switch gears. My regular voice is more like this. It's more open. It's more engaging. It's certainly louder. And I have to really tone it back when I'm having a session with clients. But, you know, I've been doing this long enough that I slip into that gear and I can do that just fine. But it wasn't easy for me. It didn't come easy. It took a while. And, but I'm there now. So you can be too. All right. Let's see. I have, read books by Dolores Cannon, or there's other people out there, Brian Weiss. There's Life Between Lives, Michael Newton. And then there's a lot of current past life regressionists and quantum healers who've offered their own books out there too. And sometimes reading, you know, what their work is like, what happened in their sessions, their tips, and sometimes their session stories will help you too. And of course, there's videos out there, all kinds of videos, and you can watch them as well. And one of the last things I had to talk about with my friend was taking courses, right? Other kinds of courses. And the courses could be not directly, like not a bunch of different quantum healing courses, although you can do that too. But you could take, for instance, you could take a Reiki course if you'd never have taken that before, a medical intuition course. What a fabulous thing to do, truly. An Akashic Records reading course. Any of those type of courses would help you very much sort of feel like you're in this space a little more supported with some foundational skills and things that you can bring to the session. And that's the conversation we had just the other day about how this person could become a better practitioner or get better at session work since she's been out of it for a while. All right. Well, I hope that that's been helpful for any of you out there. If you've got a question, whether or not you're a practitioner and have a question, or whether you're a client who's curious about this work, or somebody who's interested in possibly taking some of the courses or joining our community as a healer of any kind, please send me a note or an email or a text at quantumhealers.com. You can find all that information there, quantumhealers.com. Until next time, thanks so much for joining me. Bye for now.